Hello, Sarah Sabin, executive and team coach here in the Leading in the Modern Way video interview series. And I am really excited to be sitting down today with Nick Akrap, who is founder and CEO of Tailgreeter. Nick, welcome to the show, and I'd love you to introduce yourself briefly to my audience.
Sure. Thanks so much, Sarah, for having me. I am born and raised in Chicago, Illinois. Started Tailgreeter in about 2018 with my brothers, and from there, it's kind of snowballed. As the company grows, we come from an entrepreneurial background. Our parents immigrated over to Chicago from Croatia, and then have been here ever since. So they also run their own company, a transportation service here in Chicago. So that's kind of where it all began. Seeing it every day in, day out, of running your own company and what it takes to do so.
That's really interesting because when we go into entrepreneurs' backgrounds, it's obviously sometimes people come from an entrepreneurial background and then they're either really drawn to it or really repelled by it, or they have nothing to do with entrepreneurship and it's just a seed that's born in them. But in your case, obviously observing it within your family, what made you want to go down that road yourself?
Yeah, sure. So I think one of the things is growing up playing sports, playing basketball, things like that. No matter how much work there was, the freedom and the parents being able to show up for us and be there and be involved in things like that. And so my mom would never miss a game ever, and would be at those games answering the phone, limousine service, can I help you, and doing all of those things. So the freedom of, I think, being able to not necessarily work-life balance, but integrate work and life. I think that was attractive.
And I love that word integration, because work-life balance, I think, can be misconstrued. But if you can manage to integrate work into your life in a sustainable way, then, it allows you more of that freedom.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it makes everything so much easier. The friends you have, the trips you take, the time with the family and the kids and everything else is all kind of integrated together. So you never really feel like you're missing out on anything.
So I'd love to know more about some of the challenges that you faced since 2018 when you began Tailgreeter. What do you consider to be the most significant challenges in getting to your current stage, and how did you overcome them?
Yeah, I think the thing that jumps out significantly, obviously, Tailgreeter is a digital marketplace that really handles hospitality and events, tailgates, watch parties, all those kinds of things around the country. So an integral part of Tailgreeter in and of itself is the fact that there are events going on. So when COVID came along and events basically ceased to exist, that was scary times for sure in the beginning, thinking, how long is this going to last? What else do we have to do? What do we do there? So that was definitely a big hurdle. And getting through it, I think, was everything we needed to get to where we are now, because it taught us, just all of the little intricacies about burn rates and customer acquisitions and fundraising in general and everything else that we had time to do during that weird period. But coming out of it, I think we were definitely for it and equipped to get to where we are now.
So during that period, you used it as time to prepare and make yourself stronger for the future rather than pivoting during that time. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. We took that time to kind of sit down and figure out, where do we want to take this? How big do we want to go? Which markets do we see as being more desirable than others, and all those kinds of things that, while running the company, you kind of get caught up in the day-to-days. So having a little bit of time where we had the ability to really sit down and focus in on what we were building and how we were building it enabled us to put processes in place and we did our first round of funding then, which is just by itself a full-time job. So having a little bit of time to really focus on that stuff was a blessing in disguise, I think.
Mm. And so did it allow you to speed up growth when things got back to normal?
Yeah, 100%. We were in a position to be able to handle the ramp up, the speed up. And then also, I think just the economy overall and the world and where it was, when events started to come back, there was more pent up demand than we've ever seen in my lifetime. With people wanting to get outside, wanting to go to bigger events, concerts, sporting events, etc. So it really was a kind of perfect storm.
There's a quote that I particularly like, which goes, slow down to speed up. And, that really does, what you've said really does demonstrate that point. Because when you're in the thick of things, when you're always on a treadmill, you don't have the space to do that kind of forward-looking strategic planning because you're constantly running.
Yeah, I very much agree with that. It's really easy to get caught up in everything that's going on day to day, week by week, what's next week, like those kinds of things. To step back and zoom out is extremely difficult to do when you're in the thick of things. So that kind of gave us the time to be able to do that, which was fantastic.
So I'm curious now, looking forward, what are your plans for the upcoming year and how do you envision Tailgreeter growing and evolving in the future?
Sure. We're starting to see some really cool trends with our hosts that are on the platform currently. We went from where on average hosts would host somewhere between 3 and 5 events per year. And now we're already starting to see some people that are doing 50, 60, 70 events in a year, branching out into different sporting events, not only doing tailgating anymore, but watch parties when the team is on the road, and then meet and greets and like full weekend packages for, traveling fan club to be able to come in and meet up the night before and then go to a tailgate the day of the game. Things like that, we're really seeing there is a ton of opportunity there. So I think zeroing in on a few opportunities there will make all the difference in the world for us, allowing us to not only grow what we're building currently and in the way that we wanted to build, but then also being able to help the people that are currently on the platform get to where they want to go.
Okay, so if we were to switch focus now, I'd like to learn a little bit more about how you personally define strong leadership and how you see it impacting the growth of your business.
Sure. I like to think of leadership in general and by the way I'd like to be led. And then growing up, obviously watching my parents and having that firsthand experience, seeing that the work you put into it, you can't ever expect somebody else to put in as much or care about the company as much as you do when it's your own. So I think leading by example is first and foremost the way to do it. If I'm willing to get down and dirty and do the work that nobody else wants to do, it seems to have a positive impact on the entire team. So that's definitely, I think, number one. And then I'm also big with encouragement. I love the fact that, there's tough love and then there's normal giving people compliments and, everything like that. And I find the second way works a little bit better for me. So encouraging people to be able to take steps, to be able to lead their own projects, giving them the freedom to do the things, really putting people into place that you trust can get the job done without having to micromanage. Because I feel micromanaging is really a tough one to get over, especially in the beginning when you feel as if, there's so much that needs to be controlled. I think a big hurdle in getting from one step to the next step is kind of letting go of some of that and trusting the people you put around you.
And on that topic of trust, what is it that enables you to let go and trust your people? Because as you say, it's hard in the beginning. You started this company, it's all on you. So it can be difficult to let go. How did you personally manage to do that?
Absolutely. I think coming to the realization that mistakes are going to happen no matter what, whether it's me doing it, whether it's someone else doing it, whether I think I could do it better or not. It doesn't matter. Mistakes are going to happen. And the most creative leaders, I feel like, they allow it to happen and then iterate off of that and fix it moving forward. You can't teach someone to be better. You can't show them the way you would do it without letting them see how they do it and whether that works or not. And sometimes you'll be pleasantly surprised, being like, wow, I never thought of doing it that way. I thought it would fail. It didn't. It worked really well. So now we're on a different path, and things like that. So I think knowing that mistakes are going to happen no matter what, and trusting the process, understanding that the way forward is by doing it and figuring it out from there. You can sit around for a long time trying to make sure it's perfect before you try to do it. That just, I've never had any luck with that.
Yeah, I have yet to meet any entrepreneur that achieved anything that waited until the perfect moment for anything
Exactly.
to happen for them to move, because the moment will never be perfect.
Yeah, very, very much agree with that.
And when you think about your team and the culture that you've built, what steps do you actively take to ensure that your employees feel motivated? So you mentioned, for example, leading by example. What else do you use as a tool to motivate your employees?
Sure. I think open lines of communication is critical, especially at the stage that we're at. I think everybody needs to feel comfortable going to somebody else if they need help, or if they mess something up, or if there is a mistake that can be fixed, or, even if things are just going well, to be able to have that culture of openness where you can call me and tell me, hey, check out this cool thing that came across my desk. I made it happen. Here we are today, and, taking advantage of all that. So I think, in my opinion, one of the keys to success is organization and communication. If you have those on lock, if you have those, if you're organized well enough to be in a place where everybody can communicate, then communication just becomes a part of the culture. It's, you're encouraged to talk. We have weekly team meetings. We have daily leadership meetings. We, are constantly in communication with what you have going on. How can I help you? Here's what I have going on and how you can help me.
Okay. And in terms of you as a leader, have you invested in yourself, and what steps do you take to grow and evolve in your role?
Sure. I think constantly learning, constantly knowing that there are more things to learn. That's been a positive impact on my life just overall. Knowing that I've got a fantastic group of mentors that I can lean on and that I can learn from, and then I see the kinds of ways that they've become successful. When I run into something, being able to bounce things off of them, that has been critical in my opinion. And then actively seeking out ways to get better, actively seeking out, things like just personal happiness for, career wise, it's important as well. But personally, how things are going inside of the home, how things are going for, the family. And, I've got two brothers, like I mentioned, and they have kids and I have kids. So, being able to kind of experience life together is a key role, I feel.
Could you give me some examples of how you proactively seek out this development?
Sure. Yeah. So any kind of troubles that come up, any kind of different, how to deal with a certain scenario or a certain employee or certain, whatever it is, being able to reach out to a mentor, being able to reach out to, other leaders in the space that I've had the privilege of getting to know and build relationships with. It's always insightful to hear, because it may seem like whatever you're dealing with is very specific, and nobody else in the world has ever dealt with a problem like that, like it'd be impossible, until you start talking to other people and you realize, wow, everybody has gone through a very similar situation as this. Everybody has had, from employees to growth to, something's not working, something like, why don't I feel happy doing this, why do I tend to want to do these things instead of those things. So I think actively just having conversations, and again, open lines of communication, That is, in my opinion, the best way to go about it.
Mm. And
It helps
you,
to know that there's other people that you can lean on.
yeah, 100%. And you really raise an important point here. No struggle is entirely unique. And it's interesting because, you know, a lot of leaders feel lonely. A lot of leaders feel like, oh, well, I can't possibly be going through the same thing that other people are going through. But as you say, once you have that mentor group or peer group, then it becomes obvious to you that actually you're all just humans going through the same set of
Yeah.
struggles. And it doesn't mean that you always have to listen to the advice of everyone else. You know, if something doesn't resonate with you, fine. But you know, that feeling of being less alone and that feeling of you can lean on people to work through how you approach something really helps to combat that feeling of loneliness.
Yeah, and that's really it right there. It's like, just they're not there to necessarily give you answers. They're not there to judge or to tell you this is how you should solve this, or whatever it is. They're just there to give you their experiences. This is how, I've seen this happen in the past. These are the tools that I've used to get over them. This is how, these other people, whatever it is, but kind of just sitting there and listening and taking in advice from more than one person gives you the toolbox needed to kind of get through whatever you're getting through.
Mm. And the final question I'd love to ask Nick is, if you could go back in time and give one piece of advice to your 20-year-old self, what would that be?
So get started early. That's definitely on my list, because I feel like we talked a little bit about it previously, about waiting for perfection and waiting for the perfect time and waiting for this and waiting for that. So I think I think that would definitely be a piece of advice, being, just go out there and try it. It's okay to fail. It's okay to realize that opening up about things like that and having conversations, whether things are going well or not, are the only way people can actually help. And you tend to think that mentors or investors or other peers, you want to sound as if everything is going well all the time. You
Mm.
want to provide all the good news and kind of try to keep back some of the bad news. And realistically, it's coming to the realization that it's the exact opposite. If you want help and if you want to actually grow, talk about the stuff that's not working, because that's the stuff that they can really help with.
Mm. And I'm curious, actually, with that piece of advice, having come from an entrepreneurial family, would you say you were more inclined as a 20-year-old to know that already, to just get on with things, do things, and realize you're going to fail?
Yes and no. Yes, because it was definitely easier to take the leap.
Mm-hmm.
It was definitely easier with the support of family. I find that sometimes, the traditional routes are kind of what families tend to push you towards.
Mm.
Mine was different. Mine was, fully encouraging and going to do what I thought would make me happy. So in that sense, yes, definitely. But at the same time, I feel like they were protective. They were always protective. They wanted to, they didn't want anything wrong to happen. They didn't necessarily, they weren't fully college educated with all the tools and resources that we have now with the internet and learning and mentorship and everything. Like, they didn't have that stuff. So for them, they wanted sunshine and butterflies and us to be okay. So I think from that aspect, it was a little bit maybe difficult to really dive in, because you didn't want to disappoint.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom in this conversation, Nick. I've really enjoyed it.
Thank you so much, Sarah. Very, very much appreciated.
You're very welcome. And to my listeners, I hope you've enjoyed this conversation as well. If you would like to take part in the Leading in Modern Way video interview series, please do reach out to me. Bye for now.